mentioned in early spring that Jelani Woods kind of was projected to be a guy to impact next year, and whatever you got this year will be kind of gravy. As he's learned the new role a little bit more, Cowboy back, has that timeline maybe shifted at all in the, where you're kind of projecting him to play a role this year?
Not enough to talk about at this time. I would guess that he's more comfortable now, just from total number of plays and reps, and he's going to be given that opportunity to do some things that can help our offense based on his structure and his size and his ability to catch the ball. And if he can hold point in the blocking game, then that's a huge plus for us. With his body size and his length, in most cases he's going to be in a one-on-one with a 235 or 240, maybe 250-pound end. So we hope he comes on, and the more he does, we'll give him more. But at this point in camp, it'd be hard for me to say that he's much different in the end.
Mike, there are 7 first-year coaches in FBS who are first-time head coaches. 6 of them were offensive coordinators. So, considering that Yursich has gotten good results with all sorts of quarterback circumstances, he's here now 6 years. Are you just kind of holding your breath each year at this point that when you keep him year to year, you feel like it's a bonus? You expect that he's going to just become a more desired commodity with each year?
I do. You know, he's had offers. He could be a head coach now if he wanted to. I think he's looking for a specific opportunity, like they all have. The guys that were here before that, they all had opportunities and stayed until a certain job, except with the exception of Dana. He had started at a much higher level. But you know, Mike has been tremendous for us, and he's going to be a head coach. It's just a matter of time. It's certainly better for us if he's here, but I also want him to get the job that he wants. And he's worked extremely hard and been very loyal to Oklahoma State football. And so it'll be an exciting time for him and his family. He's got young kids when he gets started. But you know, I guess maybe you're asking how much longer can we keep him here. I don't know that anybody knows that, but he's very capable of being a head coach at this time, in my opinion.
So, because it seems like with him, it's gone from being a possibility at some point to a likelihood at some point for him. I mean, so do you start to kind of check around, you know what I mean, to look around just to be aware of maybe other people who you might look at in the event that you need a guy in December?
You know, I mentioned at some point, and maybe in Dallas or somewhere else, I don't know where I was, but I think that we're far enough along here now with my experience in the years that we've had coaches come through here and leave, or coaches that are currently on our staff, that I would be shocked. Well, I shouldn't be shocked. Anything I do wouldn't shock me, but I would be surprised if I were to hire a coordinator from this point on, and maybe even an assistant coach that has not played here, coached here, or worked at some time over the last 14 years, because we have enough people out there. So I'm in a much better place than I was, and I think that we certainly have quality people on our staff now that I wouldn't hesitate just moving them right into the coordinator role.
Nathan Denner, what do you like about Drew Brown, and what kind of value do you think he can provide in any role?
Yeah, you know, it's so early for me. I wasn't even here the first practice, so I've seen him twice, and I was watching some other stuff, but I have paid some attention to him, and then I like that he's competitive. You know, he's essentially a gym rat shortstop is what he is. He's learned the offense on his own, came and watched and took notes and put it all together. And has worked hard to get to where he's at. I like that. That means it's important to him. But I just don't have a way of giving you a barometer on where he's at right now just based on only seeing him for 2 days. I will say that I'm surprised that he and Spencer both can function as well as they did in practice with handling our offense and being as young as they are and or as new with Drew, even though he's played 25 games at this level, not in our terminology. So there's some similarities, but he's speaking a different language. So I'm impressed with him and Spencer that they're able to function out there in practice with our offense at such an early stage.
You mentioned that different language. You've got a guy in Taylor, obviously, who has a lot of experience in the system. So just generally speaking, what do you think is kind of more valuable for a quarterback, actual in-game playing experience or just experience in a system?
You know, it's interesting. I was driving and listening the other day on the radio, and I might get off statistically a little bit, but I think you guys will get the point. The top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL average yards per game throwing last year were all over 36 years old, except for the guy from Philadelphia. So what that tells you is how important experience is. So you have I'm sure Brady's one of them, and he's like 40 or something, and I don't know how old Ben is, but he was one of them. And then the other 4, I don't remember the names. There was one guy, and it was Wentz, I think's his name. All the rest of them were over 36 years old. And so I was thinking that proves how important experience is at the quarterback position. And Taylor's got a lot of experience. I've said this, I'll say it again. I don't have any doubt that he can be a really good college quarterback. We just don't know what he's going to do in front of a crowd because he's never done it. That's the only thing we don't know about him. We've watched him function in our practice. He understands our offense. He can run. He can throw. He's intelligent. He's tough. He's just never played in a crowd to start the games. I mean, he's come in, but you know, it's a little easier to come in and be a relief pitcher if I'm up 8 runs than it is to come in if it's a tie game and there's 2 people on and only 1 out. So I'm very confident in his ability, and his experience has played a key role in me feeling that way at this time.
Karen, here to the right.
Mike, in '88, Barry was a guy that obviously didn't say a whole lot or didn't really need, that wasn't his way, it wasn't his personality, and yet I take it teammates gravitated toward him because of how he carried himself and how he went about his business. Now you've got a kid in Justice who, I don't know if he's as soft-spoken as Barry, but that's just not his way to be a loud, rah-rah guy, and yet I get the sense that the kids around him gravitate toward Justice, like perhaps they once did Barry. Do you see a similarity in that sense?
They're very similar. I very seldom hear Justice talk. Obviously, I heard Barry talk more because I was around him and in the huddle. I don't know that our coaches ever really heard him say much, but their personalities, they're very humble, they're very appreciative of what they've accomplished. They love being here, and they're very similar. I saw something the other day. You guys probably saw it. I mean, there's so many people now that put out somebody put out all-time great running backs. You know, and once you get into the top 10 of them, I don't know how you tell who's better than any other one. You know, I think they had him at 3rd or 4th. So I actually thought about putting something out on Twitter, and I thought, that's not good. I'm not going to do that. Because I think he's clearly the best running back ever, in my opinion. I say this, I've said it before and I'll say it again. If he was running behind the Dallas Cowboys offensive line during those years, he'd have 30,000 yards.
Is Justice's presence a follow-up? Is that more important this year because of some of the players that you...
Is what?
Is his presence more important this year because of...
As I mentioned earlier, the one advantage that Taylor and that gang has is they have 2 mature running backs, and Hill is a fantastic player. We all know. People say, will it be a first-round pick? I don't know. You know, sometimes they don't draft running backs in the first round. I'd be shocked if he's not a top 3 running back pick, whatever round that is. And then his confidence that he brings, and the fact that, you know, we handed the ball off to him in the bowl game last year on 3rd and 14 against Virginia Tech in that last drive. I think it was maybe 3rd and 12, something like that. Because he has shown the ability to make the first person miss and be really good at running the ball. And so that certainly helps where we're at. And his presence is very important. His toughness and leadership and all those different things. And I mean, you know, he comes from his mom and daddy are great people, done a great job with him, and he hasn't allowed himself to be entitled, which happens to humans all the time. And he's the same personality he was when he showed up. And that's what's made him a fantastic player. And he's going to be like James and Mason and those guys. You know, he's a gold mine for the NFL because these guys are going to do his job. You're never going to hear about him. So, couldn't be any more proud of him.
Any different?
On the other side of the ball, Edison Magruder, and it seems like it, you know, with all the changes that Jim's brought in, if there's a guy that had to maybe change his body the most, change his duties the most, might be Kenneth. What kind of sacrifice has he made, and what does that mean to your defense to have him do what he's done?
And you're right in what you're saying. Kenneth has made changes, and if I were to say, if somebody were to say you had to pick one player on the defense that this adjustment would fit best, it would be him. He went through a period of time last year, Magruder, where he was in a position that it was hard for him to play based on his ability, his strengths, and he's now in a role that should really fit his style of play and what his strengths and what he brings to the table. And it just proves, when I watch him, it proves how powerful the mental approach to the game is, and that he feels good about his role. And as I just sit back and watch it from a distance, he's, in my opinion, a completely different person now than he was, just because he thinks and feels like, hey, I fit this. This is perfect for me. And he's done really well. His attitude's been great. And so when I say I'm excited about watching the defense play just because I want to see what they're going to do, he's one of the guys I'm excited about watching because his role has changed and it really fits his style of play. And again, and the guy came out of the game all the time in the third quarter. So, but the game has changed a little bit to his advantage from the standpoint there's more passes, but there are also more plays too. And you don't see guys carry the ball as much as he did. The durability is not like it used to be. No different than in the big leagues. They don't let pitchers throw past 5 innings anymore. So the games are changing, but I've said it a bunch and I'll say it again. I just, there's a lot of great players out there, but I don't know anybody that I would pick before him. And no disrespect to Detroit or anybody else, but I still say that if he was behind a different group at that particular time, that his records would be so far out of reach, it'd be hard for anybody to ever get to him.
Yeah, you mentioned you've got a lot of offensive linemen, more than you've had in the past in camp. And I realize these guys may not factor, but when you look at the future and you see a guy like Hunter Anthony and Jacob Farrell, I looked at those two guys today, those two young tackles that are freshmen, and they don't look like freshmen. Cooper Castleberry, the referee that was here to speak to the Extreme Campers, looked at Johnny Barr and said, "Those are freshmen?" I mean, that kind of tells you what you're getting on the ground floor with some of these guys that Josh is bringing in.
Well, it's nice that we're having this conversation because we went 4 or 5 years and we were working in the other direction. We were talking about just trying to manage it with 5 or 6 guys and didn't have a lot of depth and hoping we could stay healthy. Unfortunately, we managed it well enough that we were still successful. But I really feel good about the young people in this program in all the positions. I think we're recruiting better than we ever have, in my opinion. And Josh is doing a fantastic job. Josh is at a place that he loves. He and his wife both graduated from here, and it's easier to work in an environment when you actually care about the product that's coming out of the environment because of the people around you. And I think you're seeing that with Josh, and and really in our recruiting, we're getting some, making some real headway. I give Joe Bob and Richmond a hard time on who's actually responsible for signing good players, but they're working together and doing really well. And Greg's got a lot of long history here. So Josh has done a good job. We have some quality bodies to work with. And you guys are 300 pounds showing up. And by the time Rob Glass works on them for 24 months, he's going to trim him down a little bit, get him stronger, and work on foot speed. And so that process is enjoyable to watch, instead of trying to reach and grab guys and hope that they can make enough plays to survive during the season, which we did for about 4 years.
Jake?
Yeah, Mike, you and Yursich have been adamant that Taylor is the guy going into the preseason. Is there anything that the other two guys, Sanders, Drew Brown, or whoever, anything that they can do in August to unseat Taylor, or is it going to be a case where Taylor has to, play poorly enough in the fall where those guys might get a chance? Is that?
It's really difficult from a standpoint of, for us, I don't know that everybody else is this way, but you all know we have a certain number of reps that we give. The ones can only go on the field so many times. And so if we think that Taylor's our guy coming out of spring, which we did, even though he hasn't played in front of a crowd and proven anything to us, for the most part, if you reflect back on Mason after playing those 2 or 3 games his freshman year, you couldn't just bet the house that he was still going to be a good player, because he really didn't have that much experience. But we had to say, okay, you're our guy. Okay, we're going to push all our money over there with you, and we're getting behind you. And because of the way that reps are distributed in practice, that's why Taylor's our guy, because he's proven to us that he understands and that we can win with him and be successful. So when you have for Wood-T and you have Drew and you have Spencer come in, their reps at this time are limited. So could it happen? Sure. You could have a guy come in and just take over, and then you would have to start trying to find a way to make it work for 2 people. That's not something we would want to do unless it was a goal line short yardage situation. But if somebody earned that right, you would certainly have to facilitate it. It could happen, but it's not likely to happen early in the season until we give the other guy his opportunity, and he's earned his stripes from being here to go out and play, and we'll see where he's at. Now, the circumstances with Spencer are obviously different than with Drew. And then Wood-T's a guy that understands everything, and we're hoping he'll improve and get better and better and better.
One thing, you see grad transfer quarterbacks all over the place. A lot of them leave because they don't have any playing time. Mm-hmm. It's different with Drew. He's played 2 years. Does that give him any advantage that might be different from a guy who hasn't played at his previous school?
Yeah. And
is that something you guys
Sure.
are excited about?
Sure. He's played in games. He's threw for 2,500 yards and played 25 games, and so he has experience. And you can tell in practice, the little bit that I've seen of him, he has more awareness than a younger player might have, just because he's been out there. And the speed of the game is a very drastic change for a high school player at this level. He's already been involved in the speed of the game. So he's further ahead just based on what you said. He's been out there in the lights. He's played in 25 games. So again, if somebody said you had to make a decision on whether you thought if he got in the game could he function, you would lean toward yes, because he's already been out there.